Hello students, just wanted to go over another video here that I created today. I'm updating all my videos, so if you are in a fall 2021 class or forward, this is the most current video on how to do something in one of my classes. During the fall semester I will be removing the older videos to keep the content in the different modules as fresh as I can. And so right now you're kind of in between, you're in the swap out phase, but I'll send email links to where you can find these videos and hopefully you can follow along. So what we are going to do today is we're going to create our first virtual box for many of you. What I want you to do is come down here. Hopefully you've already watched the video on installing VirtualBox itself, the application. You're going to come in here. We are going to, if you have previous VirtualBoxes, in that case you probably don't need to watch this video, but in my case I have previous VirtualBoxes, so they're going to show up over there. We're going to create a new one, so we're going to call it Ubuntu. We're just going to call it Ubuntu 20. All right, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to allocate some memory. In VirtualBox, memory is everything. Hopefully you have a newer machine and you're going to have a green area here that's going to show you how much you can use. I suggest that you never go over half of your host. Again, my host on this particular machine is my actual Windows desktop. So I'm going to go, I have 8 gig available. I'm going to go with like 3,500, and it doesn't need to be exact. And then I'm going to hit create. So that's our first step. Then it's going to come back. It's going to ask us where to save this, and it's going to ask us how much the file size should be. All right, so what I like to do is I like to allocate, for most of your projects in my classes, you're pretty good around 20. But in this particular example, I'm going to use 40. I got plenty of room. And you want it to be dynamically allocated. And what dynamically allocated means is it grows on the fly. So what that allows us to do is it allows our image to actually expand over time. If we need it, you can also hit fixed size, but the problem there is you're going to be hard-coded into that. So I like to hit dynamically allocated. Again, most of you are good with 20, even 10 in some cases if you got a smaller hard drive on your host system. But I'm going to go with 40 because what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to copy this or clone this particular machine, and I'm going to move it over to another computer to do some software testing. I'm working on a big software application right now, so I'm going to go ahead and create that so that everything's set up for that, and then I can only have to do half the work when I get down to it. Now you should have a thing that pops up like that down at the bottom. Your most current one will be at the bottom, Ubuntu 20. Let's go and let's change a few more settings on that to make this thing more functional. The first one we're going to change is going to be the network. Just check it and make sure it's NAT. NAT stands for Network Address Translation. Basically what's going to happen there is it's going to give us network functionality. It's basically going to piggyback our virtual machine. Our Ubuntu 20 machine is going to piggyback off of our existing host OS. In my case, it's Windows 10, and it's just going to share that that particular adapter that's built into my system. For most of my classes, I'm going to say go with NAT, so we're only going to cover that. I will create a special video just on network adapters and how they work, and probably demo a few of them. But since I'm starting all the videos all over, let's start with what we need today. That way I can go to the beach and hang out at the beach a couple hours this afternoon and get some sun. And maybe next Monday when I get back in the office, I'll create the ones on the adapters first. So for now, let's just create network audio. Your audio should probably look something like this on most machines. We're not going to worry too much about it. Display, let's bump up our display a little bit. You know, you don't need to max it out. I find that in my opinion, we all know how we feel about opinions. In my opinion, if you bump it up a little bit, you get a little bit better functionality, and the system works a little bit better. So we're going to bump that up a little bit. System, what do we got going on? I don't have a floppy drive. It doesn't really matter, so we'll kind of go with that. Leave these as they're already pre-checked. You should never have to change those. You should never have to change either one of these at this point in the game. If you do have problems with that, you'll have to Google it, but those are pretty much hard-coded in place, and I've never had any problems with those. Now, the big mother load. Let's go to storage, and your storage should look something like this. In my particular instance, this is my new hard drive that I'm creating, my virtual hard drive, if you will, and I have to find that image that we downloaded, that Ubuntu image, that ISO image, that compressed image. We have to find that. So you're going to highlight that, empty, and we're going to come over here. We're going to click the blue disk. And now what we're going to do is we're going to choose a disk file. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to wherever you downloaded that file to. In most instances, you download it to your local desktop downloads folder. That's where 99% of you download it to. Now, if you're freewheeling it and you're got it set for something else, that's on you. You're going to need to find that particular ISO. What you can do is you can come over here and you can search downloads, or you can search your particular computer by typing in star.ISO or asterisk.ISO, and it'll show you all the ISO files that you have in either your download file, or what I suggest you do is change it to this PC, and wherever you have an ISO file, in case you change your download location in the background, it'll show those. Then what you can do is you can just select that particular ISO from there. So I'm going to click this, highlight it, turns light blue, and I'm going to click open. Now you should see this. So basically what that means is that ISO is going to act like a CD or a DVD in this case. If you have a live DVD, you can click right here. Most of you, I'm asking that you just do this from ISO. I ask that you do that so that you don't destroy your current background host. If you do it this way, exactly the way I have showed, you don't have to worry about ruining your host. All right, and then you're going to click OK. And you should be set up and ready to go. So let's click Start. And hopefully we'll see some magic here. And again, depending on how much RAM that you have in your system, and that'll depend on how quickly or slowly. I'm going to expand this out so we all can see it. You don't get confused by some of the noise in the background. We're going to click inside here. And this is what your screen would look like right here if you were on a if you were installing this on a regular computer. Again, I'm in a virtual environment. Having a problem with my mouse today, Mr. Mousy. It's going to go out, it's going to check that ISO file, make sure that everything adds up, make sure everything's good, make sure everything's hunky-dory. This whole process, get to go, depending on the memory in your host computer. Mine, again, is running 8 gigs. Should take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Alright, once you get into this part of the installation process, I will explain both of these to you. The first one is Try Ubuntu. If you click on that, then your virtual environment will act like you were booting off of a boot CD or boot DVD. We do not want you to do this in this particular case. Where you do that is, let's say you had an old laptop and you wanted to try Ubuntu on it, and you wanted to make sure that all the drivers that were in Ubuntu worked with the older laptop. You would go ahead and you would test it by using this. And what that means is you just use the DVD as your operating system on the fly. But we're not going to do that because we're going to do a live installation in VirtualBox. So we're going to go install Ubuntu. And most of us are going to do English. And it pretty much prompts you through everything. You have a couple different options that you can do here. Normal installation, where it installs everything. And then you have a minimal installation, which is just the basic utilities. So this is up to you. If you do minimal installation, which I'm going to do in my particular example, because I don't want all this other crap on my VirtualBox and in the background, because I don't need it. I'm actually going to use this machine that I'm creating to do this demo on. I'm going to use it on another machine, so I want my image to be as small as possible. Download updates while installing Ubuntu. This has been fixed over the last few years. A couple years ago, I would have told you not to do this. If you're using an older computer, I would tell you not to do this right now. But if you're using a newer computer that's like less than 4 years old, let's say, you're good to do that. And then you may want to go ahead and click this. Now, if you have a problem when all this is over and we're done and it doesn't boot up, then go back and try this over and uncheck both of those. But they've really really got the Canonical's got the really got the bugs worked out of this now, and it's working pretty good. I do want to caution you on one area right here. Some of this software may be proprietary. When you install this, proprietary means it's made like by a specific company. Like let's say it's a satellite PC by Toshiba. They have a lot of proprietary stuff where it's special just for their equipment. So it may download it. Sometimes I found, I do have a satellite, an old laptop, satellite laptop. I still use it today. It works great. I mainly use it for hacking and testing. Let's just say testing. I use it for testing a lot. And I like that particular computer just because I'm familiar with it. It has a big screen, and I still use it today. I have many new laptops since then, but I just happen to like that particular one because it's got a humongous screen. The problem is it sucks battery juice, so unless it's plugged in, it's not very functional. But again, that's basically what proprietary is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click continue. I know it's going to work on this machine because I've done this many times on this particular machine. We're going to click continue. All right, and it's going to pop up. It's going to ask us a couple things here. In the older versions, you have much more selections here. I think there's like 4 or 5. We're just going to erase the disk and install Ubuntu. Now, if you're using VirtualBox, okay, it's going to stay contained within the VirtualBox. You don't need to wipe out. You don't need to worry about wiping out your host system, your Windows system. But if you use this as a boot CD or DVD, where you actually booted from it and you don't see the Windows in the background, what that's going to do is it's going to go in there and it's going to erase your system. So what I suggest you do, hopefully you're using VirtualBox, make sure this one's checked. And you're going to hit install now. And it's going to ask you to verify, so we're going to hit continue. Everything looks good. A little bit more automated than what it used to be years ago. My time zone is New York since I'm in Orlando. And the time in there says 1536. You're going to see that change probably here. So it went out to a network time protocol server, NTP, and it got the correct time. Now, for my courses, I suggest everybody does the same thing. This is your first installation, so let's call this the student's machine. Students. And you're going to choose a password, and we're going to break one of my security rules. Again, since we're in a classroom, we're going to create a virtual environment where the password is password. And we're going to select login automatically. And for the most part, at this point in the game, you're just learning how to install VirtualBox. If you're in the classroom, I ask that you use password. That way I can come around and help you if you need help. If I come around and you didn't select password and you forgot your password, it's going to be a very, very embarrassing situation. Okay, which happens every now and then. Somebody puts in a custom password and they forgot what they used. So in the classroom, let's use student and password, log in automatically, and let's hit continue. All right, and just like magic, so easy a caveman can do it again. It's going to go through and it's going to load up Ubuntu. All right, and it'll take about 10 minutes. So we will let that do it, and we'll come back here in a few minutes and we'll see what's going on. All right, so now you can see here that our installation is completed, and what we're going to do is we're going to restart. Now this step here is very, very important. So you're going to hit restart now. Pay attention. I'm sure that there'll be somebody that doesn't pay attention. There always is. But I can only help those that are willing to play along. Okay, now it's going to say, please remove installation medium, then press enter. If you recall, we pointed to that ISO file that we had. All right, so we can come up here and we can go to devices, and we're going to come down to optical drives. All right, that's basically the CD-ROM. And then we're going to go remove disk from virtual drive. Okay, in my particular instance, because of the way my machine's set up, I don't need to do this, but some of you may need to do that if you're on an older computer. Okay, now what I can do is click inside the box and hit enter, and what will happen is I should boot up into my new Ubuntu 20 installation. Now, if you did not do that last step that I showed you, remove the optical disk, you'll reboot off of the boot installation CD, and you'll have to go through all this all over again. And if you did it correctly, you should see a screen like this. Now what I suggest you do here, I'll go into this real quick, is don't use any of these nonsensical logins. Keep it simple. We're not going to do live patch because we have to create an account. For privacy, we don't want to do that. I suggest that you don't send information canonical. It's just another thing that's going to hold you up. And then we're going to click through these. And now we're ready to go. So you should see a screen that looks something like this. This means that you have installed Ubuntu and it's running in the background in VirtualBox. Congratulations, you've created your first virtual machine. With that, I'm going to close out this particular video, and then